Well, this week's report from the Department of Energy that concluded that COVID-19 likely originated from a lab leak in Wuhan, China, has made many mainstream media outlets, like the New York Times, look very bad after they pushed the narrative that the lab leak theory was some sort of wild conspiracy theory. Let's talk about that and some new woke vocabulary words with KTTH Talk Radio host Jason Rantz. Jason, it's always great to see you. This is April 3rd in 2020. The New York Times writes the following, put this up. Senior Trump administration officials have pushed American spy agencies to hunt for evidence to support an unsubstantiated theory that a government laboratory in Wuhan, China, was the origin of the coronavirus outbreak, according to current and former American officials. The effort comes as President Trump escalates a public campaign to blame China for the pandemic. I mean, in hindsight, it's not just wrong and journalistically awful, Jason, it's embarrassing.
It is embarrassing, but we saw a lot of embarrassing journalism, or what we were supposed to pretend was journalism, happen at that time. You had folks who decided, simply because Donald Trump and some Republicans took a position, that they would say the opposite, no matter what. They did this with drugs. They did this with the vaccine early on. Anything that Donald Trump said, they instinctively decided to say that it's wrong, that it's part of a conspiracy, that it's fringe, whatever it happens to be. And then suddenly, right now, what are they doing? They're walking it sort of back. They're saying, well, on the one hand, maybe it's not that big of a deal, but, actually, it's still up in the air, and really, does it even matter? Do we have to know? Why would we know? Let's just move on.
Yeah, you talk about walking it back. They started to kind of walk it back 13 months later, May of 2021, quoting here, if it turns out that the COVID pandemic was caused by a leak from a lab in Wuhan, China, it will rank among the greatest scientific scandals in history, thuggishly covered up by a regime more interested in propaganda than human life, catastrophic for the entire world. China thuggishly covered it up? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was the New York Times and the general journalistic industry right now that has covered it up. Obviously, we have to pay attention to China. They are the bad guys in all of this. But so, too, are the journalists who decided to just completely push aside all of their integrity because they wanted to go after Donald Trump. They bet against him on this particular issue, and they lost.
Yeah, and they lost indeed. I wanted to get to the woke words. We have breaking news. Jason Rantz will get back to you shortly. Meantime, back to